Uh,
Oh, you're already here?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my apology.
Hare Krishna, I accept my obeisance. Jai Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my respectful obeisances.
Hare Krishna. Oh. Hare Krishna, I'm very happy with you and to be with you today and to start the study of Bhagavad Gita of the last 6 chapters. So before I start, I will start with the invocation prayers.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, actually, His Grace Vrunda Prasad Puji is not available. So if you don't mind, shall I give a brief intro about you? I was requested for the same by him.
Yes, sure.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj. So as we all know, we have His Holiness Prabhava Maharaj. So Maharaj has been part of ISKCON since more than 3 decades. And it was around 1994 that he met his 2B spiritual master, His Holiness Bhakti Maharaj. In 1998, Maharaj got first initiation, and in 1999, he got second initiation. And then later on in 2015, Maharaj got sannyas initiation. So Maharaj did Bhakti Vaibhav and Bhakti Vedanta from VIHG Vrindavan. And Maharaj also holds a PhD degree in the study of religion at the University of Wales, which he got in year 2016. Regarding Maharaj's various services in ISKCON, so right after he got his second initiation in 1999, Maharaj became the first secretary for the newly formed European Regional Governing Body. 2001 to 2011, Maharaj was involved in development of seminars on the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And some of the seminar titles are like Nature of Spiritual Compassion, 6 Gates Leading to Bhakti, 24 Spiritual Masters, and there are many such seminars that Maharaj developed. Then in 2002, Maharaj became secretary for the global GBC body and the secretary for the GBC Executive Committee, and he acted in that role till 2009. From 2011 to 16, Maharaj served as the secretary for GBC Ministry and helped with the development of the Sannyas Ministry, GBC Sannyas Ministry. And like in 2006, it was the first time that mid-year GBC meeting was being organized. So Maharaj was the one who organized this first GBC mid-year meeting that was held in Prabhupada Desh in Italy in the month of October in 2006. Then from 2003 to 2011, Maharaj served as a legal director, trustee, teacher, and student in Bhakti Vedanta College. And from 2004 to 2008, Maharaj was also involved in opening and running of an ISKCON center in Brussels. And Maharaj travels and teaches Srimad Bhagavatam and other Bhakti scriptures in ISKCON centers and institutions around Europe since early 2000s, especially in UK, Ireland, Germany, Ukraine, Bulgaria. Regarding Maharaj's teaching and educational experience, since 1998, Maharaj has been giving discourses and seminars mainly on Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam in English, French, and Dutch in countries like Canada, USA, Ukraine, India, Belgium, Netherlands, France, Spain, Ireland, England, Germany, Denmark, Sweden. And there are a list of 30-40 countries in which Maharaj is giving seminars on Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So, and since from 2001 to 2015, Maharaj was also involved in presenting discourses on Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam in assistance of Prahlad and Maharaj in the Balkan states. And from currently, Maharaj is serving as a serving as a member for the Sannyas ministry, and also Maharaj is serving as a member for ISKCON board for examination. And Maharaj is giving, as I said, discourses on Bhakti Sastri across different countries across the globe. And it is personally my fortune that I am able to introduce Maharaj. And yeah, thank you, Maharaj.
Mahyanati Mandasya Chananchalansalaka Sakshan Militam Yenata Smai Shigo Vainama Sichetanya Manopistam Staptam Yena Bhutale Shramrupkadamyam Dadati Sva Pranantikam Vandeham Shigo Shiyuda Padakamam Shigum Vaishnavam Sha Shri Upam Jagajatam Saganarnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savdutam Parjana Saitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganalita Shivshakam Vitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Tyatpate Gopesha Gopka Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Kaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhana Sudadevi Pranamama Haripriye Vankha Kalpta Visha Kripa Sinmai Visha Patnam Pavanabhyo Vaishnabhyo Namo Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavina Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Vistaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswata Devi Gaurvani Pacharine. Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Vaskachai Desatani. Srila Prabhupada Ki. So, we will be discussing the last 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. The first 6 chapters, they were mainly, not only, but mainly about Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga leading to knowledge, and now that knowledge leads to Bhakti. That first coming to the platform of knowledge. And then the 6 middle chapters were on devotional service, the most confidential part. But now the 6 last chapters, that of course, chapter 18 is a summary, but the other chapters are all about Jnana and how Jnana leads to Bhakti. So in this chapter, we will hear the 6 subject matters that this 13th chapter is one of the chapters who is difficult to understand in comparison with other chapters. That and it's about 6 subject matters. So that's something you need to remember as a Bhakti Sastri student. 13th chapter has 6 subject matters. And the first verse there's some disturbance. Okay. Everyone can mute. So there are 6 subject matters in this chapter. Kshetra, the field of activities, which is the body. Kshetra, the knower of the field. We will get to understand that there are 2 knowers of the field, the spirit soul and the super soul. And then there is Jnanam, knowledge. Jneyam is the object of knowledge. What's the object of knowledge is the Supersoul. 10, 12 verses, Krishna will speak about the Supersoul. And then there is Prakriti and Purush, material nature and the enjoyer. And that gives the title to this chapter, Nature and the Enjoyer and Consciousness. So Arjuna will start with questions, and he will ask questions on these 4 terms. Kshetra, kshetrajya, jnanam, jneyam. Text 1 and 2, because Lord Krishna will immediately start replying to the questions of Arjuna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Arjuna Vacha Prakatim Purusham Sheva Kshetram Kshetra Jnane Vacha Eta Veditum Ichami Jnanam Jnanam Sakeshava Shri Bhagavan Vacha Idam Saryan Kaunteya Kshetram It Abhidiyate Teyo Veti Tam Prahu Kshetrajya Iti Tatvida. Arjuna said, "Oh my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purush, the enjoyer, and the field and the knower of the field, and of knowledge and object of knowledge." So the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, this body, O son of Kunti, is called the field. And one who knows the body is called the knower of this field. So the body is the field of activity of the conditioned soul. And Srila Prabhupada makes an interesting statement in this purport. He says, so according to his capacity to dominate material nature, he gets a field of activities. That capacity he gets according to his previous activities. And now, the person who should not identify himself with the body is called Kshetra, the knower of the body. Of course, we know most men in this world, they are identifying with the body very strongly, but they are not in knowledge. One is Kshetra, when one knows I'm different from the body, and I'm the knower of the body. That the same with the mind. That some philosophers say, I'm thinking, feeling, willing, I am. But we are not this thinking, feeling, and willing done by the mind, because we are not the mind. That one who knows this observes the mind, but that needs spiritual power, spiritual realization. Any person can consider that from childhood to old age, he undergoes so many changes of the body, yet he's still one person remaining. So that's interesting. That because we know somewhere that we are not the body, but this awareness is overcovered by the illusion to enjoy this body. That, it's like someone gets a loan from the bank, and we know the body changes every moment so many cells are changing. That every day we change. It's practically imperceptible small change, but every day some change is there. That, but if you have a contract for a loan at the bank, and we know that the body changes. Every 6 years, all the cells are practically replaced. Every 6 years, a new body. After 6 years, you don't go to the bank and say, oh, I don't have to pay this loan anymore. I have a different body. I'm not the one who signed the contract. No, we know that we are different from the body, somewhere or another, but it's not going deeper. But that deeper thought is there. So that Srila Prabhupada explains, we know that we are different from the things used. So we say, my mind, my intelligence, these are instruments that we are using. But that's maybe quite deep knowledge. But if you study the Bhagavatam, there you have in the first canto, 7th chapter, text 5. These are the realizations of Srila Vyasadeva, who is meditating on the absolute truth. And he shares his realizations. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, the spirit soul has its own thinking, feeling, and willing in the unconditional state also. So we have a spiritual body and our own thinking, feeling, and willing. But that thinking, feeling, and willing is part of our spiritual nature. That's not different. There's no different mind. That's really us. But this thinking, feeling, and willing of the spiritual body, which is now covered by a subtle and a gross body, cannot be used for selfish purposes. So that means Krishna gives us a material mind and a material intelligence, which is different from our spiritual body. And we use this material intelligence and material mind in our endeavor to exploit this world. Amaya Such Vilga Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. And then is said in the next line that those who are the spirit souls are my part and parcels, and they try to exploit this material world. And that's our position. Therefore, we have these instruments, mind and intelligence, the subtle body, and we identify with it. And that's the big problem. These are instruments to be used, since Srila Prabhupada said. We know that we are different from the things used. So Srila Prabhupada concludes in the purport, 13th chapter. Now we are starting with the 13th chapter, how the living entity comes in contact with material nature, and how he is delivered by the Supreme Lord to different methods of fruitive activities, cultivation of knowledge, and that its discharge of devotional service is explained. So we will go first, I will go to the first 7 verses, and then we have some questions and some discussion. I will ask a question to initiate a discussion, and then we have a pause of 10 minutes. Then after that, we will have the next part of the 13th chapter. So Krishna, in summary, because Arjuna is asking these questions, and Krishna explains that the body made of senses is the field of activities of the conditioned souls. And we receive a certain type of body according to its capacity to dominate material nature. So every body, type of body gives a different capacity. That if you have the body of a dog, you have to bark. That's your capacity. But in human form of life, we have intelligence. We can plan things. It's different. Different level of capacity to dominate material nature. So one who identifies himself with the body is kshatriya, but we should not identify with the body. We are the knower of the body. So the knower is different from the body. Like if you possess something, it's different from that which he possesses. Yeah, anyway, that's text 3. Kshatrayam sapi mam vidi sarvakshatre subharata. Kshatran agnothyanam yattathyanam matam mama. O sign of Bharat, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. And to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. So Krishna explains what Jnana is. Jnana begins with understanding that the knower of the body and the body are different. So we have here 3 different topics of study. That you have the Lord, the living entity, and you have matter. So in every field of activities, in every body, there are 2 souls. The individual soul and the supersoul, Atma and Paramatma. Krishna says that I'm also the knower, but I'm not the individual knower of the body. He's a super knower. I'm present in everyone's body as Paramatma and the supersoul. That means we are in this body, the spirit soul is in the heart, 1/10,000th of a point of a head, and it's a source of consciousness. And this consciousness is spread to the entire body, to the bloodstream. So everywhere you have blood in your body, you have feeling that because there's consciousness transported from the heart. That so we know what's going on in our body to a certain extent. Well, we have some awareness, but not much, because are we aware that our heart is beating? We miss 1 beat and it's finished. That's the super knower, Krishna, is arranging as Paramatma the beating of our heart. He's arranging our digestion, but he's a super knower. We even don't know how this digestion goes. No, but he knows in detail. Krishna is in every cell, between every cell, between every atom, in every atom. He does everything. So he's a super knower. He's present in every body as Paramatma, as the supersoul. So there's 1 supersoul in our heart. It's accompanying the soul. But there are also supersouls in every cell. That's interesting. Yeah. So Krishna says, I am the knower of the field of activities in every individual body. Individual body, the individual may be the knower of his own body, but he's not in knowledge of other bodies. So we know what we are thinking, feeling, but we cannot know what others thinking are feeling. And Krishna knows everything of every individual, what they are thinking, feeling, and willing. That so he's the super knower. So Srila Prabhupada gives the analogy of the king is the original proprietor of the kingdom, and the citizen is the secondary proprietor. So the real proprietor of the body is Krishna, and we are the secondary proprietor. So So the Supreme Lord is the proprietor, controller, and knower of all bodies, and the Jiva is the proprietor, controller, and knower only of his body. That knowledge means to understand the position of Prakriti, nature, Purus, the enjoyer, and Ishvara, the knower who controls both nature and individual soul. So that shows the constitutional position of the soul and the constitution of the supersoul. And knowing that difference and their capacities, that's called knowledge, Srila Prabhupada. That this is, Srila Prabhupada said, this is what the Vedic literature describes as knowledge. And then Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he gives an analogy. Traditionally, that's a question at the exam of the Bhakti Sastri. So it's about, it's about the painter, the painting, and the easel. So explain the analogy of the painter, the painting, and the easel. So Prakriti, Purus, and Ishvara. So Prakriti means material nature. The body is material nature. Then you have the Purus, living entities, the Purus, trying to enjoy material nature. But he can only enjoy if Ishvara, the big controller, who dominates material nature, and the individual soul agrees. So who is the painter? The painter is Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, who, as the Supersoul, dominates and controls material nature. So what is the easel of the painter? It's Prakriti, material nature. And then, what is the painting? The painting is the Purus that Krishna gives us through material nature, this body. The body by which we can enjoy Purus. So that's this analogy. So further in this chapter, we will hear about these two knowers, two kshatriyas, the individual soul and the super soul. And one is fallible, the other is infallible. One is superior, the other is subordinate. That's, yeah. So Krishna says, I'm also the knower of the field of activity. When one understands a rope to be a serpent is not in knowledge. So Prabhupada writes. There are different kinds of bodies and there are owners of bodies. Yeah. And bodies and owners of bodies. We are the owner of the body. Supersoul is also the owner of the body. But, yes. So Krishna says that real knowledge is to know the Supersoul is the controller of the field of activities and a finite enjoyer. That's if one thinks oneself to be the body and not the knower of the body, one misunderstands a rope to be a serpent. Good. Then text 4. Kshat Kshetram Yat Shayat Riksha Yat Vikari Yatasayat Sasayo Yat Prabhavasya Tat Samasinameshvinu. Now please hear my description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, and who that knower of the field of activities is, and what its influences are. So one must, Srila Prabhupada writes in the Prabhupada, one must know the body and from which materials it is made, and who controls the working of this body. Will be further explained in chapter 15. Krishna verses Sarvasham Redishana Vishtamata Shmitkanama Pamsa. For me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Whatever we know, whatever we forget, whatever we remember, done by Krishna. Krishna gives us that knowledge. 1861 Ishvara Shavabhutnam Richi Saryanatista di Brahman Samabhutanam Yantarutai Maya. I'm seated in everyone's heart and I control the wanderings of all living entities who are seated in a yantra, a machine made of material energy. And Krishna controls as a Supersoul, as one of the knowers, the Kshatriya, that one should know how the changes are taking place, where from the changes are coming, what the causes are, what the reasons are, and what the ultimate goal of the individual soul is, and what the actual form of the individual soul is. There's a lot of knowledge. This will be further explored in the Bhagavatam. So many ways. And this helps us to realize that. But one should be careful not to consider the Supreme Personality of Godhead in every body to be one with the individual, the Jiva. This is some like equating the potent and the important. So Krishna, in this verse 4, raises 5 points on which he will elaborate further in this chapter. First, how the body is constituted, verse 6 and 7. What changes the bodies undergo, verse 7 to 20. How, when, and where the body is produced, is explained in verse 6, 21, 22, 30. And the identity of the knower of the field of activities. That's explained, all this knowledge of the Supersoul from verses 14 to 18 and 23. And then the influence of the knower, that's explained in verses 14, 18. That, so he gives here these points and now he's going to explain them. That text 5. And that's also interesting. Rishi bir baudagi tam chando bir vidadai pritak. Brahma sutra padashaiva hetumad bir finishita. That knowledge of the field of activities and the knower of activities is described by various sages in Vedic writings. It is especially presented in the Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. So, learned scholars, standard authorities always gives evidence from previous authorities. So, although Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's a supreme authority, but is referring here to sages, to the Vedanta Sutra, to support these statements. Just as Arjuna's guru, he refers to Sadhu and Shastra to confirm. It's very important. We will discuss that further a little later. Sadhu and Shastra. Thus, as Arjuna's guru, he refers to Radha, Sadhu and Shastra to confirm his statements, showing how Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra are all required, all three, to establish the truth. That a few points of the purpose. The higher and lower natures exist due to ignorance and are being manifested in an infinite number of living entities. But the Supersoul, which is infallible, is uncontaminated by the three modes, the three qualities of material nature. And then Srila Prabhupada speaks about the Brahma Pucham. The Brahma Puchams are 5 realizations of the Absolute Truth. And that is stated in Taittiriya Upanishad 2.5. So that could also be a question of your exam. Explain the Brahma Pucham, these 5 realizations of the Absolute Truth. So first is explained Annamaya, depending on food existence. Like the fish, the animals, what are they doing? What's their consciousness? Their consciousness is Annamaya. They are always searching, where is food, where is food, where is food, trying to get food. So that's Annamaya. A little higher consciousness is Pranamaya, realizing the absolute truth in the living symptoms of life form. One realizes, yes, mostly on the animal level, I'm not alone. I'm not alone who is searching for food. There are some competitors. And sometimes I have to defend myself. So that is Pranamaya. And then one comes to Jnanamoya. One thinks, oh, I'm thinking, feeling, willing. That's realization to thinking, feeling, and willing. One becomes interested in arts, in development of knowledge, that emotions, that so many desires that go with that. And then a little higher, well, Jnana Moya is also called sometimes Mana Moya, the same. Yes, thinking, feeling, willing. That, but then when one comes to higher consciousness, one starts to understand I'm not a body. Vijnana Moya. I'm not a body. What's the goal of life? That is, yeah. One gets jnana. One realizes I'm not a body, but one has not yet realization. So this four first stages are on the material platform. But then the next stage is the transcendental stage, Ananda Moya. When one realizes that one is a liberated soul, one becomes liberated. That's Ananda Moya. So these are 5 stages of Brahman realization called Brahma Puja. Brahma Puja, yeah. So out of these, the first 3, Anamoya, Pranamoya, and Jnanamoya, involve the field of activities of the living entity. Transcendental to all these activities of the Supreme Lord is Anandamoya. So Anandamoya is transcendental. That, so, but the living entity decides himself to dovetail him with, when he decides to dovetail himself, Srila Prabhupada tries with Anandamoya, with the bliss attained through devotional service, he becomes perfect. That, so one has to search for this truth, Srila Prabhupada writes in the Vedanta Sutra, or the Brahma Sutra, how to come to this Anandamoya, the natural state of the spirit. So that because the Lord expands himself to enjoy transcendental bliss in the activities of the living entity. In the field of activities, the living entity is considered to be the enjoyer, and it's different from this Anandamaya. It's in the material field. So the living entity, if he dovetails himself, connects himself with the spiritual energy, with Anandamoya, then he becomes perfect. So that connection is yoga, and that yoga connection is made by devotional service. Signs of Krishna consciousness. Now, that is text 6-7 now. Man bhutana hankaro buddha vyaktameva sha indriyana dasai kamcha pansha sandriya gochara itvatvesukam dukam sangata sitana stiti itachitam samasina savikaram udaritam. The 5 great elements, false ego intelligence, the unmanifested, the senses, and the mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, and the life symptoms and convictions, all these are considered in summary to be the field of activities and its interactions. So the field of activities is a temporary manifestation. This body is temporary. It's composed of 24 elements. And Srila Prabhupada describes these elements in the purport that, first he says there are the 5 great elements, the Mahabhutas. Bhumi, Rapa, Nala, Analoerkam. So these are, earth, air, ether, fire, water. This is the Mahabhuta, the 5 elements. And then there are 3 other elements: false ego, intelligence, and the unmanifested stage of the 3 modes of nature. That's interesting. That maybe because what I will do is I will share with you on the screen a document. Back to up. Share screen. So first we have the 5 great elements. In Sanskrit, Mahabhuta. And that is earth, water, fire, ether, and air. So these are 5 elements, and then Srila Prabhupada writes, there are 3 more elements, and they are also intelligence, and the unmanifested state of material nature. So we have already 8 elements, and then above the senses there is the mind. No, there are 5 senses of acquiring knowledge. So these are, here we have 5. Here we have 3. And then we have 5 working senses. Oh. 5. 5 working senses. What are these 5? Srila Prabhupada writes, these 5 working senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. Then above the senses there is the mind. The mind, which can be called, Srila Prabhupada said, the mind is a sense within. So we have now 5, 3, 5. Is the, then you have the 5 the working senses. Now, these are the, sorry, I made an error here. 5. Acquiring knowledge. Acquiring knowledge senses. And then you have, again, 5 working senses. Five working senses. Voice, legs. I'm writing it down because I presented many times the Bhakti Sastri. And the votes are sometimes confused about this point, about this 24. That so voice, legs, hands, anus, genitals. And then you have the mind. It's called the sense within, right? So that's also 1. And then Srila Prabhupada writes, so we have 11 senses together, 5 acquiring knowledge and senses, 5 working senses. And the mind, that's 11 senses. And we had before 8 elements. So we are at 19, but then you have 5 objects of the senses, and that will bring us to 24. 5 objects. Objects of the senses. And what are these objects? Prabhupada says, smell, taste, form, touch, and sound. So the aggregate of these 24 elements is the field of activities. Aggregate of these 24 elements is the field of activities. Okay. So that is a field of activities. And then there are desire, hatred, happiness, and distress. So attachment, aversion, happiness, and distress. That's going together with the body. And it's an experience of the body. It's attachment, aversion, happiness, and distress. It's not an experience of the soul. It's an experience that comes into our mind. That it's an experience that comes into our mind. this happiness and distress, and this attachment and aversion. That so this attachment and aversion we create because we are identifying with the body. We think, and that's explained before in Bhagavad Gita, because through 334, Krishna said there are two obstacles of the path of spiritual realization: attachment and aversion. There's attachment and aversion, and the happiness and distress. And we have to tolerate this happiness and distress, Krishna says. And this attachment and aversion, we have to get out. Because we are attached to what gives pleasure to the body. And we are averse to what gives pain. No, I don't want that. Attachment and aversion. So we don't want that. And yeah, that goes by lust. Lust makes us identify with the body. So the living symptoms represented by consciousness and convictions are the manifestations of the subtle body, mind, and intelligence. The 5 great elements are a gross representation of the false ego. That's all explained also in the creation, in the Bhagavatam, in the 2nd canto, in the 3rd canto. How all these gross elements are created by the false ego. False ego is a conscience that I'm this body and I want to enjoy through this body. And that conscience makes us take birth again and again and again, because that makes these 5 elements appear and form a body because of our material desires. So that comes from that false ego. So what is this unmanifested modes of material nature? So Prabhupada explains here in the purport. It's called pradhan. Pradhan. That is the unmanifested states of the 3 modes of nature. But that pradhan develops because of the desires of the conditioned souls to enjoy. But in the beginning, it's unmanifested, but it becomes unmanifested in the subtle elements, later in the gross elements. That's the process of the creation of the universe, but also the process of the creation of our own body. And that's the cause. But if you don't understand that, well, in the study of the Bible, then that comes again. That will certainly become clear there. So the body is a representation of all these factors, and there are changes of the body, which are 6 in number. That the body is born, it grows, it stays for some time. You have byproducts, children, it starts to decay, and it vanishes. So these are things you have to remember for your study. 24 elements, what are these? I brought them on the screen. And these 6 changes that the body goes through. But good, that was quite a lot of yarn. That I hope we are not too bewildered by it. But now I want to ask you a question. So Lord Krishna refers to Go, Sadhu, and Shastra. So we need all 3. So what will happen if you have only the Guru and you have no Sadhu and Shastra? What will go wrong? Can someone tell me?
Maharaj, there are so much bogus gurus. So, I mean, how do we know that the guru is bona fide or not? And what's the authenticity of what he's speaking? How do we verify that whether he's speaking is the truth or not, or it's just his own mental speculation?
Yes, sure. That's a very good reason. Thank you, Kadala. Does someone else want to contribute? Let me ask another question. What if we have only sadhu? What will happen? Someone else, when we have only sadhu and we don't have guru or shastra?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, uh, all of three are very important. Without Shastra, generally, basically, and what Guru says, what is in the Shastras, and what Sadhu teaches, what is in the Shastras, is that. And if there is no Guru, then as we hear that Brahman Gumita Kono Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Kripa Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. If there is no Guru, then whatever we are doing, even we are chanting the mantra, and there is one more verse. I'm remembering that mantra stay nishphala mata. Till the time we don't take initiation, whatever we chant, that is yes fruitful up to some extent. But actually, the fruit it is fructify. We get to attach to the parampara, and our then only we can go back home, back to the Godhead, and we can attain the goal of life, this Krishna Prem, if there is Guru. And without Guru, there is no, not possible to attain the this. And Shastra is what is about the teachings of Krishna. So it is very important to have a Guru. If Guru is not there, it's not possible to. All three are very important, and this Sadhu is not there. Sadhu is one that who teaches us. Actually, the main role who plays is the Sadhu. That as we see in the temple, we take initiation in later years. But who puts his sweats and blood on us? That is Sadhu. So this is could I say, Maharaj? Thank you.
But that's very good. Thank you, Mother Rukmini. I was thinking. So the point is, if you suppose you have only Guru and Shastra and not Sadhu, what misconceptions or wrong practice could arise from that?
Or else there won't be any concept of serving the Vaishnavas, the devotee association. And one would say that there is me, there is my Guru. I don't bother about anyone else. Whilst I heard in a lecture that if we serve only Shiksha Guru, then neither Shiksha Guru, Diksha Guru or Krishna is satisfied. If we serve only Diksha Guru, then neither Diksha Guru nor Krishna is satisfied. And if we serve only Krishna, then Krishna is not satisfied. But if we serve Vaishnavas, then all three, Shiksha Guru, Diksha Guru and Krishna, all three are satisfied. So in that sense, serving the devotees, there won't be any such thing in this thing.
Very good. Thank you. So let's now have a pause. It's in Delhi now 8 o'clock. Let's convene again at 8:10, and for the second part at verses 8 to 19. Thank you. Hare Krishna. See you in a few minutes. Hare Krishna. So we can continue with the next section of chapter 13, verses 8 till 19. Verses 8 to 12, the process of knowledge is described. It are 20 points. Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of evil, birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All this I declare knowledge. And besides this, whatever there may be, is ignorance. So Srila Prabhupada makes a point, this is the real process of knowledge. So knowledge, one can get to by going to a process. And this is the process of knowledge that we have, that this is a process through Jnana which leads to knowledge. So Srila Prabhupada writes, this is actually the means to get out of those elements. The embodied soul is entrapped by the body, which is a casing made of 24 elements. And the process of knowledge described here is the means to get out, because this process will lead to realizations. We have heard in the 10th chapter by Krishna 10:10, Krishna says, Tesham satayuknam bhajtam pita pravakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayanti te. The Dami, Krishna gives realization to the heart when we perform devotional service. We serve him with a little love. So then Krishna in the next verse said, Tesham evanakampatam amakyana jamtaman nasa jamatma bhavastuhan panavashvata. So such devotee who serves me with a little love, from within his heart with the lamp of knowledge, jnana tipana, I cleanse his misconceptions. So this process here describes that brings us this jnana tipana. We get realizations. Because this verse 10:11 is Krishna tells how he gives realizations from within the heart. And we can get these realizations also through this process of knowledge. That humility is the first. So this process of knowledge, because this process of knowledge must lead to understand Krishna's position, our position, and our relationship with Krishna, which is devotional service. That our constitutional position is not to be under the control of birth, death, old age, and disease. No, that's the evil. That has nothing to do with our relationship with Krishna. It's forgetting Krishna that makes us makes us forget Krishna, to see everything else objects of sense gratification, to become absorbed in family life as everything, as this is everything, that's the goal of my life. That, yes. No, devotee wise realizations, he doesn't want to be in the center. He wants always to be at the background, in a solitary place. He doesn't care what the general mass of people says in this world. He accepts the importance of self-realization. So that's the process. And Srila Prabhupada makes a point from these 20 elements, there are 2 elements, very important, because one must approach a spiritual master and one must engage in devotional service. These 2. That because these, why are they the most important? Because if one accepts a spiritual master, follows in his instructions and engages in devotional service, all the other will develop, that will follow. One will renounce from sense gratification. That because one is engaged in devotional service. That so one is not interested in pleasant or not disturbed by unpleasant events. That's for the body. It's just, that's temporary. It's enjoyment and so on. So one gets realizations. So these 2 are most important. Accepting a spiritual master and engage in devotional service. Without devotional service, the other point become all useless, because one who performs devotional service, he develops all good qualities. Yes, the Bhakti Bhagavata Kinshana Saverkana Tatra. Yeah, that's mentioned in the Bhagavatam, 5th canto. Teachings of Lord Shabbadev. That, yeah, it's also mentioned in the purport here. Yeah. So these are the most important. And then you have all these qualities, these points. I will read a few lines of that, but we cannot go in detail for all this. But humility means that one should not be anxious to have satisfaction of being honored by others. Lord Chaitanya said, Trinat Pisnitsnet Aravis Aisne, Amana Manadana Kirtanyasdai. One should be more humble than a straw in the street. Humility is the beginning of knowledge. Krishna will not give you knowledge as you not understand, when you don't understand that he's God and that you are subordinate to him. That no, that one must know one's position. If one knows Krishna, then one knows one's position. One becomes humble. That, and this honor and dishonor, that's for the body, that's useless. You leave this body, suppose you have been dishonored all your life and then you leave the body. Then you get another body in the next life, and but what with the dishonor of your last life? Nobody cares about it. It's all gone. For actual advancement in spiritual life, one should have a test to see how far one is progressing, how one can judge by these items. So that's important. How to recognize who is advanced and not advanced. It's important to know who is advanced and not advanced. One can judge by these items. Also in the 12th chapter, we have heard a whole list from verse 14 till 20, as beginning with Advesta Sarva Bhutanam. Advesta Sarva, one is non-envious from all living entities and so on, equal in happiness and distress, and all, a whole list. And here you have again a list to see how you can see that someone is advanced and not advanced. And that's important. If if you have studied Nectar of Instruction, or maybe you will still study it, that in text 5, Nectar of Instruction, there, in the first lines of the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, in order to apply these 6 loving exchanges with devotion, between devotion, as mentioned in the previous verse, appropriately, you must know who is advanced and who is not advanced. Otherwise, if you don't know who is advanced and who is not advanced, you are a neophyte and you will make offenses. Anyway, that's a whole study, but it's important to consider that. To study knowledge is important. Non-violence. Actually, non-violence means not to put others in distress. That's One, and Srila makes a point, one should try his best to distribute real knowledge to the people so that they may become enlightened and leave this material entanglement. Because if you engage in material activities with others, you will bring them in distress. Tolerance means that one should be practiced to bear insult and dishonor from others. Simplicity means that without diplomacy, one should be so straightforward that he can disclose the real truth even to an enemy. But, cleanliness, 2 kinds of cleanliness, Prabhupada says, external, internal. External, taking a bath; internal, chanting Hare Krishna. It's cleansing the mind, intelligence, the subtle body. If you have Krishna in your mind, Krishna is antiseptic and prophylactic. It's certain Shirsa Upanishad. Antiseptic means he will cleanse you out from lust, anger, greed, and so on. And prophylactic, it acts like a vaccine. That no new lust or contamination can come in when you are thinking of Krishna. Steadiness, one should be very determined to make progress in spiritual life. And self-control, one should not accept anything detrimental to spiritual progress. Then Srila Prabhupada speaks in the purport of the tongue, how to control the tongue. Always engage it in tasting remnants of foodstuff offered to Krishna and chanting Hare Krishna. And with the eyes, we should see the beautiful form of Krishna. Ears should be engaged in hearing about Krishna. That. False ego is accepting this body as oneself. False ego is condemned, not real ego. That. One should try to understand the distress of accepting birth, death, and old age and disease. And then Srila Prabhupada refers to the Bhagavatam. This is in the 3rd canto, teachings of Lord Kapila, how the living entity in the womb is described very graphically. So no one wants to be diseased, no one wants to be old, but we cannot avoid this. So devotees have a pessimistic view on materialistic life and all this distress of death, birth, old age, and disease. But we are most optimistic about our spiritual constitution, that we are eternal, we don't die. So that's a positive side. So he says, as for detachment from children, wife, and home, it is not meant that one should not have no feeling for these. They are not real objects of our affection, but when they are not favorable for spiritual progress, then one should not be attached to them. the best process for making the home pleasant is Krishna consciousness. If one is in full Krishna consciousness, he can make his home very happy. So it says we should do 4 things. Family life: chant Hare Krishna, accept remembrance of food offered to Krishna, discuss the books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and engage in deity worship. That's, yeah. Happiness and distress one has to tolerate, but if one is adapted to the spiritual way of life, then naturally we don't want to mix with materialistic man. But so Prabhupada concludes, one should make research to understand the self. That is recommended here. But, so, yes. Engaging in the devotional service of the Lord, that is the perfection of knowledge. So I'll just read the last paragraph. That's a nice conclusion. Beginning from the practicing humility up to the point of realization of the supreme truth, the absolute personality of Godhead, this process is just like a staircase beginning from the ground floor, going up to the top floor. Now on this staircase, there are so many people who have reached the first floor, the second, and the third floor. But unless one reaches the top floor, which is the understanding of Krishna, he is at the lower state of knowledge. If anyone wants to compete with God at the same time and at the same time make advancement of spiritual knowledge, he will be frustrated. This is clearly stated that without humility, understanding is not truly possible. The beginning of knowledge, therefore, is amanitva, humility. One should be humble and know that he is subordinate to the Supreme Lord. Due to the rebellion against the Supreme Lord, one becomes subordinate to material knowledge. So this verses 8-12. What do we need to remember here? We never forget that that this verse is about process of knowledge, that there are 2 of the 20 points essential: accepting a spiritual master and performance of devotional service, because from the performance of devotional service, all the other qualities develop. So, amanitva, humility. Without humility, we cannot understand this knowledge. One must accept the truth that is God, that who is God? We are not God. That's the first thing we must accept. We are subordinate to the Supreme Lord. Then we can start making progress on this, through this process of knowledge. Now in verses 13 till 19, the object of knowledge is described, Nyayam. So the soul and the supersoul are here discussed. That text 13. Verse 13 refers to the soul, not yet to the supersoul. That Yeyam yat tat pavakshami yat tvam retamasnute anadimat param brahma nasatan nasat uchate. I shall now explain the knowable, which you will taste eternal Brahman, the spirit beginningless and subordinate to me, lies beyond the cause and effect of the material world. So first, the Lord explains here the soul, that Srila Prabhupada writes in the Prabhupada, there is no specific date at which the jiva was born, nor can anyone trace out the history of the jivatma's manifestation from the Supreme Lord. But because Katha Upanishad says, also Bhagavad Gita, the knower, and that's 220, the knower of the body is never born and never dies, is full of knowledge. So the living entities are eternally in the service of the Supreme Lord. And that's also confirmed by Lord Chaitanya. Therefore, the description of Brahma mentioned in this verse is in relation to the individual soul. Yeah. And now, so 14, the description begins from the Supersoul. But verse 13, Brahman here in the Sanskrit refers to the individual soul. That because the Anadi, further, that Anada Brahma, or the Supreme Lord, is different. So Krishna says, one who understands the soul and the super soul, he can relish nectar in this life. And now we will, because Krishna said, yeah, of course, that before we heard 327, practically not Kriyamana ni gunakarana sarvsankara vimudatma kartamiti manyatu. Krishna says that everything is done by material nature, and one would think himself to do is the super as. But then Krishna says, Maya Dakshina Pragati. I'm the superintendent of material nature. How is he the superintendent? He is the superintendent through the super soul. So we will hear about this super soul. The first thing we will hear is that the super soul is all-pervading. Sarvata panipatam tat sarvata kshishiramukam sarvata shrutimalloke sarma vrittatishtati. Everywhere are his hands and his legs, his eyes, heads and faces, and yes, ears everywhere. In this way, the super soul exists, pervading everything. But so, as the sun exists, diffusing its unlimited rays, so does the super soul or the personality of Godhead. He exists in his all-pervading form, and in him exist all the individual living entities, beginning from the great teacher Brahma down to the small ants. So in 9.5, we have already heard, Krishna says, yes, he says, I'm in everything, but I'm separate from everything at the same time. I'm separated as Bhagavan of everything, but I'm all pervading as a super soul. Yes. So the super soul is all pervading. And he can accept, Srila Prabhupada makes that point. Yes, because he's all pervading. He can just accept anything, even from a distant place. But as individual souls, we don't have that power, but Krishna can. So if everyone offers him a flower or a fruit or a little water, and Krishna, even if it's a far distance away, he can accept things because it's all pervading. So this verse describes the super soul, the supreme soul, the personality of Godhead, not the individual soul. And in text 15, we are hearing more qualities of the Supersoul. Nirguna. Sarvendriya gunabhasam sarvendriya vivarchitam asaktam sarvavritsheva nirgunam gunabhuktricha. The Supersoul is the original source of all senses, yet is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time is the master of all the modes of nature. So the Srila Prabhupada writes, actually, the individual souls have spiritual senses. As Srila Prabhupada says that we have this hand, this specific gross hand, you have the subtle hand, and then you have the spiritual hand. It's there, but it's inactive. It's covered over. That so actually the individual souls have spiritual senses, but in conditioned life they are covered with material elements, and therefore the senses, the sense activities are exhibited through matter. The Supreme Lord's senses are not so covered. So the Supersoul lives in the heart of every living being, and he knows what we have done in the past, what they are doing now, and what is awaiting us in the future. He knows the future because he knows our past activities and the reactions. But he is the maintainer of all living entities and the witness of all activity. As far as we can understand, from Vedic literature, the Supreme Lord is always transcendental. Due to materially contaminated senses, we cannot see his form. So the Lord is nirguna. That's a point we have to remember. Nirguna. His senses are transcendental without covering. Not like us. Our spiritual senses are covered. Krishna never. Nirguna. So the impersonalist cannot see his form due to materially contaminated senses. Therefore, they misunderstand the Supreme Lord. So they are still materially contaminated. That's also confirmed in the Bhagavatam. Yeniere vindaksa vimuktimanas prastabhava avisuddha buddhaya. Avisuddha buddhaya. The impersonalist, their conception is, or their body, their intelligence is impure, avisuddha, because they have only a partial realization. They realize, I'm not the body, I'm spirit, I'm Brahman, good. But they don't know who they are. They have realized they are not the body. But who are we? Mamaipam Shichivelaka Shiva Bhutan Sanatna, we will hear in 15.7. We are part and parcels of Krishna, and therefore servants of Krishna, subordinate to Krishna. And that knowledge they don't have. And they think they can merge with Brahman and become God, because they think Brahman is God. Brahman has no form. But there is Para-Brahman. And Para-Brahman is a transcendental form. It's different.
Maharaj, I had one question. Can I ask?
Yeah, sure.
Maharaj, as we are hearing that Krishna Lord is everywhere in the form of super soul, and also we hear that like within within our body we are having two souls, like one is the soul and one is the super soul. The super soul, like soul is basically the enjoying bird, which is in either taking the benefits or suffering, and the other one is just witnessing. So generally one doubt comes into mind, that why Lord is just acting like a witness. Why is he waiting for the soul to turn back to him and then only he will guide? Means why he's just observing and providing the facility so that he can go away from Krishna and not return to him. So how can we understand this nature of God?
The Supreme Lord sees himself as the servant of the desires of the living entities. So once we were in the spiritual world, and we became curious. What would it be to be Krishna? What would it be to be the controller? And then Krishna says, yes, okay, you want to experience? Yeah, sure. But Krishna says, but there's one problem. I'm the controller. There will be no fun for you if you remember me. So first you have to forget me. So therefore we are brought into material nature. And we got a material body to enjoy and to exploit. Because we want to be God. We want to be the controller. So, but Krishna is a controller. So Krishna says, I stay at the background and I facilitate you. But there's one issue. If you come to the material world, you want to be the controller, you must bear the consequences of your actions, your reactions. So Krishna stays at the background and looks at the living entity and fulfills his desires and gives his reactions. And Krishna says in the 5th chapter, Nadate Karichit Pranam, yeah, this verse says, yeah, I'm not responsible for the suffering and the happiness of the living entities. It's due to their pious and impious activities. So it's due to us. We want to be the enjoyer. As long as we want to be the enjoyer and the controller, Krishna stays at the background. Because if he wants to fulfill our desires. So Krishna consciousness is changing our desire. And Krishna make arrangements if we want. He's not forcing us. Because love of Krishna cannot be forced. It's not forcing upon that. He never does that. But he gives us Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra to guide us back. And Krishna says, if you start to serve me with love, I immediately reciprocate from within the heart. So Krishna is ready, but we must want. That's the point. If we don't want, Krishna remains as a super soul at the background. Does that help them?
Maharaj, like just one thing, like as Krishna tells in 5th chapter that I am Suhritam, like your best friend.
Yeah.
So if we are someone's best friend and if our friend is doing some mistakes, then isn't it our duty to correct him and to bring him on the right path? So if Krishna is our best friend, then why is he allowing to turn us away from him?
Krishna is our best friend, and therefore he fulfills our desires. He's the servant of our desires. And why are all these souls coming to this world? They want to enjoy. And Krishna facilitates them. Is that not nice as a friend? You want to have that experience, and he makes all arrangements for you. He gives you your body, air, water, fire, all the plants that need to exist. He gives you everything. That's quite a friend who is facilitating a lot. But like I said, Krishna does not interfere with our free will. He knows our future, but what he does not know is how we will react on the happiness and the pain we will endure. That's are we going to push again the red button of karma and say yes, thinking ourselves the controller, or are we going to surrender to him? That's up to us. So Krishna gives us free will. If he would intervene and bring everything back to the spiritual world, there's no free will. He will force it upon us. But people in this world are very demoniac, most of them. What we have heard is 99.9% are Naradams, social and politically developed, but inside great demons. And we will hear about this description in the 16th chapter about what that means. So that is why Krishna does not intervene. He facilitates and he respects the desires of the living entity. He has great respect for our desires. And that's a friend who helps you to fulfill your desires. And some people, they don't want to get out of this material world because they want to enjoy. And even for them, Krishna gives them opportunities, karma kanda, to enjoy in a pious way and stay in this material world. That's also an option. But it's up to us. Like we cannot force someone to take up Krishna consciousness. And Krishna instructs us that. Said, this secret should not be explained to those who are not austere, not my devotees. He does not want that we are going to interfere with the free will of others. So if you are propagating Krishna consciousness and someone is really inimical to Krishna, Krishna says, don't do it. Sometimes we distribute books. You distribute books and one after another say, no, I'm not interested. But then you have someone who is very interested. It's Krishna who sends them because they have a desire to get out of it. And Krishna helps them. That, you see, yeah, in that way. Does that help?
Yes, Maharaj, yes.
Okay. Try my best. Someone else? Otherwise, we continue. We have still a few verses to go. Moment. So text 15. Savendriya gunaba san savendriya vivarchitam asaktam savabriksha nirhudam gunabhuktasya. Bhaktrisha. The Supersoul is the original source of all senses, yet is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all the modes of nature. Yeah. So we have discussed this verse that is the maintainer of all living entities, the witness of our activities. But we cannot see the Lord's form. Srila Prabhupada said, due to our materially contaminated senses, we cannot see his form. We will learn about that also in the Nectar of Devotion. We cannot see him with our contaminated senses. We have to purify our soul by the chanting of the holy names. Then we will know Krishna as is. Text 16. Ayiranta sabhuta namacham charamevasha subsmatvat tat avihyenam durastam santite satat. The supreme truth exists outside and inside of all living beings, the moving and non-moving, because it's subtle, is beyond the power of the material senses to see or to know. Although far, far away, it's also near to all. So, yes, far away and near to all. Is present in the spiritual world as Lord Narayan, as Krishna, and in the material world as a super soul. He said that to understand him, our material mind and senses cannot act. But one who has purified his mind and senses by practicing Krishna consciousness in the devotional service can see him constantly. If we are purified in heart, we can see him constantly. But how to see him constantly, we will hear, we have heard at the end of the 11th chapter, of the universal form. It's only by Ananya Bhakti, pure devotional service, that Krishna can be known. At text 18, no, 17. Avibhaktam sabhuteshu vibhaktam miyasastitam uttabrate satacheyam kasishnu pavavishnu sa. Although the Supersoul appears to be divided among all living beings, it's never divided. It's situated as one. Although it's the maintainer of every living entity, it is understood that he devours and develops all. So in the purpose, Srila Prabhupada gives an example of the sun. So the sun is in the sky. If one goes 5,000 miles in all directions and asks, where is the sun? Everyone will say that it's shining on his head. In the Vedic literature, this example is given to show although is undivided, is situated as if divided. Yeah, it's like the sun is reflected in many pots. That's not an example. The Supreme Lord, although the maintainer of every living entity, devours everything at the time of annihilation. This was confirmed in the 11th chapter when the Lord said that he had come to devour all the warriors assembled at Kurukshetra. He also mentioned that in the form of time he devours also. He is the annihilator, the killer of all. When there is creation, he develops all from their original state, and at the time of annihilation, he devours them. So he's the original of all living entities and the rest of all. And after the creation, everything rests in him. Good. So he's the maintainer and the devourer of all living entities. It's a super soul that lets go this body, that maintains it, and then it's annihilated. It's a super soul that lets it go to the 6 stages that the body goes through. That's 18. Jyoti samapatat jyotis tamasa paramamuchyate jnanam jnanam jnanagamyam vedisavasya vishtitam. Is the source of all light in all luminous objects. Is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifest. Is knowledge, is object of knowledge, and is the goal of knowledge. Is situated in everyone's heart. So you have the sun, Srila Prabhupada, explains the effulgence of the sun gets his power from the Brahmajyoti. It's a reflection of the Brahmajyoti. And the Brahmajyoti is the Lord's spiritual effulgence. But of course, this Brahmajyoti in the material world, well, the Brahmajyoti is everywhere, but in the material world is covered by Ma-tattva, the material manifestation, all the elements, 24 elements we spoke about. So Krishna is also, Prabhupada speaks about, is the goal of knowledge, is knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the goal of knowledge. That, yeah. So that's important. Knowledge, object of knowledge, that, and the goal of knowledge. So the one who is anxious to be transferred to the spiritual world, knowledge is given by the Supreme Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart. So what is this knowledge? It's knowing who Krishna is, knowing who we are, and what our relationship is. So this is described in the Vedas. That first you must develop Sambandha Jnana. Who is Krishna? Who am I? What is our relationship, which is devotional service? Then Abhideya Jnana, engaging in that devotional service. And then Prajon, Abhideya. And then the goal of knowledge, Prayojan, is Krishna, to serve Krishna and develop love for him. So we need that knowledge. If you don't know who Krishna is, how to perform devotional service and what the goal is, then there is no devotional service. But here it says that this Vedic literature confirms that Brahman is concentrated transcendental knowledge. The one who is anxious to be transferred to the spiritual world, knowledge is given by the Supreme Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart. So he gives to Guru, Shada, and Sastra. And he gives also from within. The Antaryami, Guru, the Supersoul. Only by knowing him can one surpass the boundary of birth and death. At the end, that Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supersoul, is the Prabhu or Master of all living entities, therefore is the ultimate shelter of all living entities. So there is no denying the fact that this Supreme Supersoul and the individual soul are different. Good. We have spoken about the Lord's effulgence, the Brahmajyoti, which eliminates the Vaikuntha worlds and which gives light to the sun and the moon in the material world. We have heard that the Supreme Now is the goal of knowledge. Now we have verse 19, the last verse. Iti chatam tatanjana yam satam samastam. Okay. Iti chatam tatanjanam yam satam samasatam madbhakta itavishyaya madbhavayo papatsate. Thus the field of activities, knowledge, and the knowable have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly and thus attain my nature. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives a summary of the verses 6 to 18 we discussed today. That in the purport of 19, that says, now to summarize, one may understand that verses 6 and 7 begin from the Mahabhutani and continuing to the Chaitanya Triti, analyze the material elements and certain manifestation of the symptoms of life. This combined to form the body of the field of activities, and verses 8 to 12 from Ananitvam to Tattva and Artha Darshanam describe the process of knowledge for understanding both types of knower of the fields of activities, namely the soul and the supersoul. Then verses 13 till 19, beginning from Anadi Matparam, containing to Sri Sarvasya Vishtitam, describe the soul and the Supreme Lord, or the supersoul. So 3 items have been described: the field of activity, the process of understanding, and both the soul and the supersoul. That we have these 3 things. Knowledge of 3 things: the knower, the knowable, and the process of knowledge. And these 3 is Vijnan. So if someone asks you what's Vijnan, it's a combination of the knower, that we are the knower, supersoul is the knower. The knowable, that's knowing the field of activities and knowing the supersoul, and the process of knowing. Yeah. Perfect knowledge can be understood by unalloyed devotees of the Lord directly. So that's others are unable to understand. So that's, Krishna has mentioned that before. In 4.3 he said to Arjuna, you can understand this knowledge because you are my devotee. 9.1 he said, because Arjuna, you can understand because you are non-envious. So these are qualifications to understand this knowledge. That, so we heard about all these items of process of knowledge that, that we heard that we cannot understand the Lord with imperfect senses. That yeah. I think we have covered the essence of this section. Are there any questions, please?
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, if you don't mind, can I? We have already explained the answer of one of the questions, but still, can I ask again, please?
Yes, sure.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, this is the answer you gave, that Krishna doesn't force anybody. Love is not by force. It's by, so it's by devotional service it comes. This is the reason I understand. I'm trying to understand, Maharaj, but still it's coming like if okay, if I see it as a tattva, if there are my parents, like if something is not good for me, they will even scold me not to go for that if it's not good for me. So still it's going on, Maharaj, that Krishna is the best well-wisher. He's a Suhridam friend, and if it is not good for me, he's witnessing. I'm agreeing that he's not forcing. He is not forcing us, because it was my free will that I wanted to enjoy. So he gave me, okay, you go enjoy. But of course, the consequences are here, which are here. I got the body and all. Answers are here. But still, Maharaj, if you can please help. That if somebody is very good friend, why will he allow us to go to hell? It's Sukhalem and Asha Ashwatam.
Yeah, that's Krishna. If we want to go to hell, he will facilitate our going to hell, because he's our servant. But he's always trying to bring us back. And that's the reason why there is suffering in this world. It never works out. You will always be frustrated. And Krishna is waiting till the moment that you will understand that this material life is all useless, completely useless. That, yes, because that is the illusion of everyone in this world. They think they are going to be happy in this world. Srila Prabhupada says there is no happiness in this world, just sense gratification. That real happiness is the happiness of the soul. And what do we all want? We want to love and be loved. And do you get that in this world? No. It's lust, it's a different thing. And it never gives satisfaction. So you have this frustration again and again. And that's what Krishna says. Dayate visyapam samsangeste sabajayate sanka sayate kamakam kod vijayat. You meditate on enjoying in this world, and you create, anticipates happiness, but then it doesn't come, and frustration, anger comes. And yeah, so that's this is a place for rectification, the material world. This body is a machine to give us pain. If you are in the prison, you are not going to be happy. There is suffering. And Krishna waits until we turn our face to them and say, sorry, Krishna, we took the wrong decision. Please bring me back. Get me out of here. And then Krishna helps. But that's the reason why there is suffering. So Krishna is trying, but he does not interfere directly with our desire. We must experience that we want to be God, but it's not possible. But we have to go to this learning. Yeah, that's how Krishna created the whole system. And it's for our betterment, this suffering. But yeah, but many don't come to their senses. But Krishna gives them a chance again and again. One life, hopefully by the association of devotees, they will make it. That come to the conclusion, I'm not a controller, I'm controlled. And who is a controller? They find out.
Thank you so very much, Maharaj. It helped me. Thank you, Maharaj.
Any other questions? Good. 9 o'clock in Delhi. It's getting late. So I'm looking forward to see you on Sunday. Sunday we have another class, same time. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.